The shuttle docked with a gentle bump. Zoe took a deep breath and joined the line of humans and aliens moving toward the exit. Her heart pounded in her chest as she stepped onto the station for the first time. The gravity felt slightly different, making her movements awkward compared to the graceful aliens around her. The trading station was a marvel of engineering, a spinning wheel of metal and glass that housed representatives from 12 different alien civilizations. Zoe had studied all of them during her training, but seeing them in person was overwhelming. The Krell were massive reptilians with scales that shifted colors in the light. The Vorax had 4 arms and eyes that glowed like embers. And the Lumari, tall, graceful beings, with skin that shimmered with iridescent patterns. A station official checked her credentials and directed her toward the human embassy. A small section of the station had been designed to make Earth visitors feel at home with plants from Earth, and gravity adjusted to match their home planet. Zoe would sleep there, but her work would take her throughout the station. Kate Larson, the human ambassador, greeted Zoe with a warm smile. "Welcome to Harmony Station," she said. "This is the first year of our exchange program, and you were selected because of your adaptability and emotional intelligence. Aliens find humans fascinating, but also unpredictable. Your job is to show them that our unpredictability is a strength, not a weakness." Zoe nodded, trying to hide her nervousness. "What exactly will I be doing?" she asked. Kate explained that Zoe would be working with a Lumari trade representative named Zelia. The Lumari were one of the oldest species in the galactic community. They valued logic and order above all else. Their technology was centuries beyond human capability, but they struggled to understand the emotional nature of other species. The next morning, Zoe met Zelia in the central garden of the station. The Lumari stood nearly 7 feet tall with long limbs and fingers. Her skin glowed with a soft blue light that seemed to pulse gently. Her eyes were large with no visible pupils, just swirling patterns of silver greetings. "Zoe Miller." Zelia said, her voice melodic but flat. "I requested to work with a human because your species confuses my people. We wish to understand you better." Zoe smiled and extended her hand, forgetting that many aliens did not share the human custom of handshakes. To her surprise, Zelia carefully took her hand. The Lumari skin felt smooth like polished stone, but warm. "I requested this assignment because I want to understand aliens better too," Zoe said. "It seems we have something in common." Zelia tilted her head, her skin shifting to a lighter shade of blue. "I do not understand," she said. "How can we have something in common when our species evolved on different worlds?" Zoe laughed. "We both want to learn. That curiosity is what we have in common." The Lumari considered this for a moment, then nodded. Her skin rippled with a new pattern that Zoe could not interpret. "Yet another thing I must learn about your species," Zelia said. Their first week together was filled with awkward moments. Zelia spoke with precise logic while Zoe used idioms and jokes that the Lumari could not understand, but slowly they developed a rhythm. Zoe learned that the changing colors of Zelia's skin reflected her internal state, while Zelia began to understand that human emotions were not flaws but a different kind of strength. They worked together in the trade division, helping to negotiate exchanges between Earth and the alien civilizations. Humans had little technology to offer, but Earth art, music, and food were highly valued by many species. Zoe was surprised to learn that the concept of cooking food was unusual among the stars. Most species ate their food raw or processed it mechanically. One evening, as they finished their work, Zelia invited Zoe to join her for a meal in the Lumari section of the station. "I wish to show you how my people live," she said. The Lumari quarters were Spartan with geometric designs covering every surface. The lighting was dim by human standards, but the walls themselves glowed with soft light. Zelia explained that Lumari did not sleep as humans did. Instead, they entered a meditative state for 2 hours each day, allowing their minds to process information. "What do Lumari do for fun?" Zoe asked as they sat at a low table. Zelia looked confused. "Fun," she repeated. "The concept is not familiar." Zoe tried again. "What do you do when you are not working?" The Lumari considered the question. We improve ourselves, she said. We study the patterns of the universe. We seek perfection in all things. This is why we find humans so interesting. You seek pleasure in activities that serve no purpose. Zoe smiled. That might be our greatest strength, she said. We play games, we make art, we tell stories. These things help us see the world differently. They help us find new solutions. To problems, Xylia offered Zoe a bowl of luminescent crystals. These are mineral supplements, she explained. They contain elements that both our species require for optimal function. Zoe took one and placed it in her mouth. It dissolved like sugar leaving. A tingling sensation on her tongue. It tastes like mint, she said. The Lumari looked intrigued. Taste is not important to my people, she said. We consume only what is necessary for health as. The weeks passed. Zoe and Xylia spent more time together outside of work. Zoe introduced Xylia to human music, playing recordings of everything from classical to pop. The Lumari was particularly fascinated by jazz. The patterns are both logical and unpredictable. Xylia said, her skin shifting to a deep purple as she listened to a saxophone solo. This reflects the human mind. In return, Xylia taught Zoe about Lumari art, which consisted of mathematical patterns that changed and evolved based on the viewer's thoughts. Through a special interface, Zoe could see how her emotions affected the swirling designs projected on the walls. The station commander, Tarla, a stern Krell female, called them to her office one day. We have received reports that a group of isolationist Krell are planning to disrupt the upcoming trade conference, she said. They believe that contact with other species, particularly emotional ones like humans, weakens our civilization. I need you two to review the security protocols. Tarla looked at Zoe directly. Some aliens consider humans dangerous. Because of your unpredictable nature, she said. You are physically weaker than most species, yet you charge into danger when others retreat. This makes some of us nervous. Zoe and Xylia spent long hours reviewing the conference plans the Lumari created, perfect logical systems, while Zoe identified emotional pressure points that might lead to conflict. Together, they developed security measures that accounted for both rational and irrational behavior. 3 months into her assignment, Zoe had begun to feel at home on the station. She had learned to recognize the subtle changes in Xylia's skin that indicated her moods. The deep blue of concentration, the rippling patterns of curiosity, the rare flashes of bright yellow that might be the Lumari, equivalent of laughter. For her part, Xylia had begun to use human expressions and even attempted jokes, though her delivery remained formal. She had requested information about human history and spent hours asking Zoe about Earth cultures one evening. As they walked through the central garden, Xylia asked, "Why do humans form attachments to individuals rather than to groups?" Zoe thought about the question. "We find meaning in personal connections," she explained. "Each relationship is unique, shaped by shared experiences and understanding. We value the individual stories we create together." The Lumari nodded slowly, her skin shifting to a color Zoe had never seen before, a soft pink with gold flecks. "I believe I am beginning to understand," she said. "My people would say this is inefficient, but I find that I value our individual connection. It has changed my understanding of the universe." Before Zoe could respond, alarms blared throughout the station. A computerized voice announced, "Emergency in Docking Bay 7. All personnel evacuate to safe zones." Xylia's skin paled to nearly white. "A ship must have crashed into the station," she said. "We need to move quickly." They ran toward the nearest safe zone, but a sudden explosion rocked the station, throwing them against a wall. Emergency doors slammed shut around them, sealing them in a section of corridor. Zoe picked herself up and helped Xylia to her feet. The Lumari touched a control panel on the wall, her long fingers moving with precision. "The system is damaged," she said. "This section is losing pressure. We have 18 minutes before oxygen levels become critical." While Xylia searched for logical solutions, Zoe examined the walls looking for any way out. She noticed a maintenance panel near the floor and pried it open, revealing a narrow tunnel. "The emergency tunnel," she said. "We can crawl through to the next section." Xylia looked doubtful. "My species is not built for such spaces," she said. Our limbs are too long, and our joints do not bend, as yours do. Zoe took her hand. It's our only chance, she said. I will help you. Now I'll create part 2 for you. The maintenance tunnel was narrow, barely wide enough for Zoe to crawl through. For Zelia, it was a painful struggle. The Lumari had to contort her long limbs in ways they were never designed to move. Her skin flashed with patterns of distress, colors shifting rapidly between red and white. Zoe went first, lighting the way with the emergency light from her communication device. The tunnel was dusty and full of cables and pipes that ran through the station walls. She could hear Zelia behind her breathing in quick, shallow gasps. Are you okay? Zoe asked, looking back over her shoulder. Lumari do not experience fear. Zelia replied, her voice tight. But my body is responding to danger in ways I cannot control. Zoe reached back and took Zelia's hand, squeezing it gently. My grandmother taught me a trick for when I was scared. She said, breathe in for 4 counts, hold for 7, then breathe out for 8. It helps calm your body. The Lumari followed her instructions. Her skin gradually shifted from alarming red to a steadier orange. Zoe continued to hold her hand as they moved through the tunnel, talking softly to distract her friend from the claustrophobic space. She told Zelia about growing up in a small town on Earth, about swimming in the lake near her home, and watching stars on summer nights. The simple human gesture of holding hands, something Lumari never did, seemed to anchor Zelia, giving her something to focus on. Besides the confined space, after what felt like hours, they reached another maintenance panel. Zoe pushed it open, and they emerged into a cargo bay. Several other survivors were gathered there, aliens of different species huddled in groups. Most looked frightened, some were injured. A Krell engineer named Morka was working on a control panel, her scaled hands moving with precision despite their size. She looked up as Zoe and Zelia approached. The breach is in Section 5, she said. We need to activate the emergency shields, but the main controls are damaged. I need to reach the manual override. Where is it? Zoe asked. Morka pointed to a narrow opening in the wall. The access point is there, but none of us can fit through that gap. We need someone small. Without hesitation, Zoe stepped forward. I can do it, she said. What do I need to do? The Krell explained that Zoe would need to crawl through a maintenance duct to reach the override switch. The area near the breach would be cold with thin air, but if she could activate the switch, the emergency shields would contain the damage. Zelia grabbed Zoe's arm, her skin flashing with alarm patterns. The temperature near the breach is below human tolerance, she said. You could suffer tissue damage or worse. Zoe gently removed Zelia's hand. If I don't try, more sections might be compromised. She said more people could die. It's worth the risk. The Lumari stared at her. Then her skin settled into a steady blue. She removed her outer robe and wrapped it around Zoe. This material regulates temperature, she said. It will provide some protection. Morka helped Zoe into the narrow opening. The metal walls were already cold against her skin, but Zelia's robe provided a layer of warmth. She crawled forward, following the Krell instructions. The further she went, the colder it became. Her breath formed clouds in front of her face. The air grew thin, making her dizzy. She could feel the vibration of the breach before she saw it. A section of the station wall ahead had buckled inward. The emergency seals had partially engaged, but were failing. Beyond the damaged wall, she could see the blackness of space and the distant surface of Mars. The override switch was located in a small alcove just before the breach. Zoe pushed forward, ignoring the numbness spreading through her fingers and toes. Her lungs burned with each breath, but she kept moving, focusing on reaching the switch. When she finally reached it, her hands were so numb she could barely grip the lever. She used both hands, pulling with all her strength. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, with a grinding noise, the lever moved. The lights in the tunnel flashed red, and she heard the hiss of machinery activating. The emergency shields hummed to life, a translucent barrier forming over the breach. The pressure in the tunnel began to stabilize, but Zoe could feel consciousness slipping away. Her vision darkened. At the edges, she tried to turn back toward safety, but her limbs refused to respond. The last thing she saw was a flash of iridescent light as someone reached for her. When Zoe awoke, she was in the medical bay of the station. The room was dimly lit and warm. She tried to sit up, but a gentle hand pressed her back down. "You must rest." Celia's voice came from beside the bed. The Lumari sat in a chair, her skin glowing with a soft pink light, a color Zoe had never seen before. "How long was I out?" Zoe asked, her voice raspy. 3 Earth days, Celia replied. "I did not leave this room during that time. The human doctors said you suffered from oxygen deprivation and cold exposure, but you will recover completely." Zoe reached out and touched Celia's arm. "Your skin. It's pink. I've never seen that color before." The Lumari looked down as if surprised. "I do not know what this signifies," she admitted. "It is not a color my people typically display. Perhaps it is a result of our connection. Your human unpredictability appears to be affecting me." Before Zoe could respond, the door slid open and Station Commander Tarla entered. The Krell moved with measured steps, her scales gleaming in the low light. She stood at the foot of Zoe's bed, her yellow eyes unblinking. "Your actions saved 37 lives," Tarla said, including representatives from species that had previously viewed humans as primitive. "Your bravery has been reported to all homeworlds." The commander explained that the crashed ship had been piloted by the isolationist Krell who had planned to disrupt the trade conference. They had not intended to cause damage to the station, but their ship had malfunctioned. The incident was being investigated by the Galactic Council. "I misjudged your species," Tarla admitted. "We thought human unpredictability was a weakness. A more logical species would have calculated the risk and determined that one life was not worth sacrificing for strangers. But your instinctive action saved many, and now I wonder if there is wisdom in your human impulses." After the commander left, Celia remained at Zoe's bedside. The Lumari seemed different somehow, less rigid in her movements, more expressive in her speech. "I have been studying human relationships while you recovered," she said. "Humans form deep bonds with individuals, even those from different groups. This seemed inefficient to me before, but now I understand that diversity strengthens connections rather than weakening them." Zoe smiled, despite the pain in her chest. "You sound almost human," she teased. Celia's skin rippled with patterns that might have been amusement. "I remained Lumari," she said, "but perhaps I am becoming a new kind of Lumari, one who understands the value of emotions. The Lumari High Council has sent a message. They wish to speak with you when you have recovered." 2 weeks later, Zoe was fully healed. She and Celia stood before a holographic projection of the Lumari Council. 5 ancient beings with skin that shimmered with complex patterns. Their eyes held wisdom gathered over centuries. "We have observed your actions with interest," Zoe Miller, the lead counselor, said. "Our species has always valued logic above all else. We believed that emotions led to chaos and inefficiency. But your emotional response led you to save lives when pure logic might have calculated that the risk was too great." The council explained that they wished to create a new position, human ambassador to Lumari. They wanted Zoe to be the first to hold this title. She would travel to the Lumari homeworld and help bridge the gap between their species. Zoe was stunned by the offer. She looked at Celia, whose skin now frequently displayed new emotional colors around her. "Would I go alone?" she asked. The council members exchanged glances, their skin patterns shifting in silent communication. Then the lead counselor spoke. "Celia has requested to remain as your partner. She has argued that your connection demonstrates the potential of human-Lumari relations." "We have," agreed. Celia's skin glowed with that now familiar pink as she turned to Zoe. "I wish to continue learning from you," she said. "If you are willing, of course," Zoe said without hesitation. Her heart felt full in a way she had never experienced before. 2 beings from different worlds forming a bond that transcended species. Her impulsive decision to join the exchange program had led her to a friendship deeper than any she had known on Earth. After the council meeting, Zoe and Celia walked through the repaired section of the station. The breach had been sealed, but signs of damage remained. Workers of various species labored to restore the area. Zoe noticed that they worked in mixed groups, humans and aliens side by side. Word of her bravery had spread throughout. The station aliens who had previously avoided humans now approached Zoe asking questions about Earth. Some even requested to learn human customs and games. One evening, Zoe taught a group of Vorax children to play hide-and-seek their forearms, and glowing eyes made them excellent at the game. Their parents watched with fascination as their children experienced play perhaps for the first time. Zelia observed the scene, her skin shifting through patterns of deep thought. "Why do humans teach their young to play games?" she asked. "Wouldn't direct education be more efficient?" Zoe smiled. "Play teaches creativity," she explained. "It helps children learn to think in new ways, to find solutions that might not be obvious. It teaches them to adapt." The Lumari considered this. "This might explain why humans advance so quickly despite your short lives," she said. "Your play leads to innovation." As the day of their departure for the Lumari homeworld approached, Zoe received messages from Earth. Her family was proud but concerned about her traveling so far from home. Kate Larson, the human ambassador, assured them that Zoe would be safe and that her new position would strengthen the alliance between humans and Lumari. The night before they left, Zelia took Zoe to a special observatory on the outer ring of the station. The walls and ceiling were transparent, offering an unobstructed view of space. Mars hung below them, a rust-red sphere against the blackness. The stars shone with a clarity impossible to see from Earth. "My people have names for each star," Zelia said. "But we name them based on their mathematical properties, their distance, temperature, size. We do not see patterns in them as humans do with your constellations." Zoe pointed to a bright star. "Tell me its Lumari name." Zelia recited a series of musical tones. "It translates roughly to perfect sphere of balanced hydrogen fusion." Zoe laughed. "Humans would give it a name like the Diamond of the North or the Lover's Star." The Lumari tilted her head. "Your way seems illogical, but I find it beautiful. How strange that I now value beauty above logic in some things. My people will find me changed but not diminished," Zoe said, reaching for her friend's hand. "You understand things now that other Lumari don't, just as I understand things about your people that other humans don't. We are bridges between worlds." Zelia's skin glowed with that now familiar pink light as she took Zoe's hand. "Yes," she agreed, "we are bridges, and I find I am grateful for the unpredictable human impulse that brought you to this station now for part 3. The journey to the Lumari homeworld took 3 weeks by starship. The vessel moved through folded space, a technology humans were only beginning to understand. Zoe spent hours in the observation deck watching as the stars streaked past in ribbons of light. Zelia joined her, often explaining the physics of their travel, though she admitted that even Lumari did not fully comprehend the mathematics behind it. "We understand how to use it," Zelia said, "but the deepest principles remain mysterious. Even to us. Some of my people believe there is an artistic element to space folding that defies pure logic." This confession surprised Zoe. "I thought Lumari believed everything could be explained through mathematics." Zelia's skin rippled with thoughtful patterns. "Most do," she admitted. "But some of us have begun to question whether the universe can be fully understood through logic alone. Our contact with humans has inspired new lines of thought." As they approached the Lumari system, Zelia grew quieter, her skin shifting with subtle patterns that Zoe had learned to recognize as nervousness. "I have not returned home since meeting you," she explained. "My people will see the changes in me. Some will not approve." Zoe squeezed her hand gently, a gesture that had become natural between them. "You haven't lost anything, Zelia," she said. "You've gained new perspectives." The Lumari homeworld came into view, a planet of swirling blues and purples, with rings of crystalline particles that caught the light of its sun. The ship descended through wispy clouds into a landscape unlike anything Zoe had seen on Earth. The ground was covered with geometric patterns of vegetation, growth that seemed both natural and deliberately shaped. Tall spires rose from the landscape, buildings that blended seamlessly with the terrain. Their surfaces shimmered with the same iridescence as Lumari skin. The capital city was built around a massive crystal structure that Zelia explained was the oldest building on the planet. The original Lumari had emerged from the crystal, according to legend, evolving from light itself rather than organic matter. Scientists had since discovered that the crystal contained unique properties that had indeed influenced Lumari evolution. A delegation met them at the landing pad. The Lumari officials moved with precise grace, their skin patterns shifting in formal greetings. They spoke their own language to Zelia, musical tones that Zoe translator rendered as welcome statements and inquiries about their journey. When they addressed Zoe, they switched to carefully pronounced human English. The First Minister of Intercultural Relations stepped forward. "Welcome, Zoe Miller," she said. "We have prepared a residence for you that we hope will accommodate your human needs. Please inform us if any adjustments are required." The Lumari had transformed a section of a governmental building to serve as Zoe's home and office. The space was larger than she needed, with high ceilings to accommodate Lumari height. They had attempted to include human elements with varying success. The bed was too firm, the temperature controls set for Lumari comfort, but they had included plants from Earth and even a small water fountain, a sound that Zelia had told them humans found soothing. For the first few days, Zoe barely saw Zelia. The Lumari was required to report to the High Council, providing detailed accounts of her time with humans. Officials interviewed her extensively, scanning her brain patterns to record her experiences. Most concerning to the council was the new emotional range. Zelia displayed particularly the pink coloration that appeared when she was with Zoe. Zelia explained to Zoe that no Lumari had ever exhibited such colors before. Some council members feared it indicated contamination or illness. Others were fascinated and wished to study the phenomenon. The majority simply did not understand. After a week of isolation, Zelia was permitted to resume her duties as Zoe liaison. The two friends walked through the crystal gardens of the capital, Zoe marveling at the way the plants seemed to sing when touched by light. "I was beginning to think they wouldn't let us see each other again," Zoe said. "The council has concluded that our connection is valuable to understanding humans," Zelia replied, though they remain concerned about my deviations from Lumari norms. Zoe stopped walking to face her friend. "Are you okay with that?" Being studied like some kind of experiment, Zelia's skin rippled with what Zoe now recognized as amusement. "It is the Lumari way," she said. "We study everything. Methodically, my people are not being unkind. They simply seek to understand, and there is something they wish you to see." She led Zoe to a vast circular building with no visible entrance. At Zelia's approach, a section of wall became transparent, revealing an interior filled with light and movement. Inside, hundreds of young Lumari moved in synchronized patterns, their skin shifting through coordinated colors. It looked like a dance, but with mathematical precision. "This is where our young learn to control their emotional expressions," Zelia explained. "From birth, Lumari experience emotions much as humans do, but we are taught to channel them into logical patterns to find the rationality within feeling. Rather than suppressing emotion, we transform it." Zoe watched fascinated as the young Lumari performed their exercises. "Is that what you were taught?" "Yes," Zelia said. "But my time with you has shown me that there is value in direct emotional expression. The pink color I display, the council calls it aberrant, but I believe it represents an evolution in understanding." Their conversation was interrupted by an urgent message from the High Council. They were summoned immediately. When they arrived, the council chamber was filled with Lumari officials, all displaying patterns of concern a situation has developed. First Minister Ilara said, "We have received word that a Lumari research vessel has crashed on one of our outer moons. The ship carried 20 scientists, including specialists in atmospheric studies. The crash site is near one of our sacred lakes, bodies of water, that hold special significance to our people." Zelia explained to Zoe that Lumari had evolved on land with very little exposure to large bodies of water. Their homeworld had few oceans, and those that existed were carefully managed and rarely visited. Most Lumari experienced a form of panic when confronted with deep water, an instinctive fear their logical minds could not fully overcome. "The rescue teams are unable to reach the crashed ship," Ilara continued. "It lies beyond a section of lake too wide to circumvent. The injured scientist cannot be moved far, but must be brought across the water for medical evacuation. Zoe listened carefully, then spoke. I can help, she said. Humans are natural swimmers. I could reach the ship and help bring the injured across the lake. The council members' skin patterns shifted with surprise and skepticism. The temperature is within human tolerance range, Alara said, but we do not wish to endanger you. I grew up swimming in lakes on Earth. Zoe assured them it would be an honor to help. After some debate, the council agreed. Zoe and Zelia were transported to the moon by a fast shuttle. The landscape was barren with purple rock formations and a thin atmosphere. The sacred lake gleamed like polished metal, its surface perfectly still. In the distance, they could see smoke rising from the crashed ship. The rescue team consisted of 5 Lumari, all displaying the controlled blue patterns of professionals. Focusing on a task, they had brought emergency medical equipment, but explained their dilemma. They could not cross the lake, and going around would take too long for the most severely injured. Zoe examined the lake. It was about 200 meters. Across the water was clear enough to see the bottom, not too deep for swimming. I can do this, she said. But I might need help bringing the injured back across. One of the rescue team members stepped forward. I have studied human swimming techniques, he said. Though I have never attempted the practice, I am willing to try if you will guide me. His name was Nexil, a medical specialist with an interest in xenobiology. Zoe spent 30 minutes teaching him basic floating and swimming movements. His long Lumari limbs were actually advantageous in the water. Once he overcame his initial fear, when they were ready, Zoe and Nexil entered the lake. The water was cool, but not uncomfortable. They swam slowly, Zoe keeping pace with Nexil and offering encouragement. When they reached the other side, they climbed onto the rocky shore and made their way to the crashed ship. The vessel had broken into 2 sections. The Lumari scientists inside were injured but alive. Their skin patterns were chaotic, indicating pain and fear. Nexil moved among them quickly, assessing their conditions. 3 were critically injured and needed immediate evacuation. They constructed floating platforms from debris securing the injured Lumari. With medical restraints, Zoe would pull the first platform across while Nexil assisted the scientist, who could swim with support. The remaining injured would be brought across in subsequent trips. The first crossing was the hardest. The injured Lumari on the platform was barely conscious, her skin flickering with distress patterns. Zoe pulled steadily, keeping the platform balanced. Nexil swam, alongside supporting another scientist whose arm was broken. When they reached the far shore, the medical team rushed forward with stabilizing equipment. Zoe made 2 more crossings, bringing all the critically injured to safety. By the 3rd trip, Nexil had gained confidence in the water, moving with increasing grace. The remaining scientists were able to wait for a larger rescue vessel that would arrive within hours. As they returned to the capital, Zoe was exhausted but satisfied she had made a difference using skills that came naturally to humans but were foreign to Lumari. The rescue team treated her with a new respect, their skin patterns showing colors she had not seen before. News of the rescue spread quickly through Lumari. Society. Zoe was invited to address the High Council to explain how humans learn to swim. The council members listened with fascination as she described how human children were taught water safety and swimming techniques. Your species embraces the very elements that cause fear, Alara observed. This is not logical, and yet it serves a valuable purpose. The council has been discussing your role here, Ambassador Miller. We believe there is much more your species can teach us in the following weeks. Zoe began a cultural exchange program. Humans from Earth were invited to visit Lumari to teach skills that their hosts found challenging. Swimming was the first, but others followed. Human artists demonstrated how emotional expression could be channeled into creative works. Human musicians performed concerts that left Lumari audiences with skin patterns never before recorded. Zelia remained by Zoe's side throughout these exchanges. Her skin now regularly displayed the pink coloration. When they were together, the Lumari scientists had determined it was not harmful, merely unique. They theorized it represented a new neural pathway, one created through close contact with a different species. 6 months into her stay on the Lumari homeworld, Zoe received a message from Earth. A massive meteor was on course to strike the planet. While not an extinction-level event, it would cause devastating damage in populated areas. Earth scientists were working on solutions, but time was running. Short Zoe brought the news to the High Council, showing them the projected impact site and damage assessments. Without hesitation, the Council offered Lumari assistance. Ships were dispatched immediately, carrying technology that could help divert the meteor or minimize its impact. Xylia personally volunteered to lead the relief efforts. "We have deflection technology that we have never before shared with other species," she told the Council. "These circumstances justify an exception to our protocols." When questioned about her reasoning, Xylia's skin glowed pink as she answered, "My time with Zoe has taught me that some bonds transcend logic. The connection between our worlds is worth preserving, even if doing so contradicts our traditional approaches to technology sharing." The Council approved her request with a unanimous vote. Something Zoe learned was extremely rare in Lumari governance. Xylia prepared to depart for Earth, leading a team of Lumari scientists and engineers. The night before her departure, Xylia came to Zoe's quarters. Her skin was shifting through complex patterns that Zoe had never seen before. "I find myself experiencing concern for you," she admitted. "I will be gone for several weeks, and you will be alone among my people." Zoe smiled. "You'll be fine," she said. "The Lumari have been welcoming, and I have my work to keep me busy. But I will miss you." Xylia tilted her head. "My research indicates that humans often exchange physical gestures of affection before separation." "Is this accurate?" "Yes," Zoe said with a small laugh. "We hug people we care about when saying goodbye." The Lumari stepped forward awkwardly, extending her long arms. "In the spirit of cultural exchange," she said. Zoe moved into the embrace, wrapping her arms around her friend. Xylia was warm, her skin pulsing with light that seemed to synchronize with Zoe's heartbeat. They stood that way for several moments before Xylia stepped back, her skin glowing the brightest pink Zoe had ever seen. "I understand now," she said softly. "Why? Humans value physical contact. It creates a connection that transcends logical thought. I will carry this understanding with me to Earth now for Part 4. For life. Part 4. While Xylia was on Earth, Zoe threw herself into her work as ambassador. The initial curiosity about the first human on the Lumari homeworld had developed into genuine interest. Many Lumari requested meetings to discuss human culture, philosophy, and science. Zoe found herself speaking to groups of all sizes, from intimate gatherings of officials to large public forums where hundreds of Lumari gathered to hear her. The questions they asked revealed much about Lumari society and how they viewed humans. Why do humans create art that serves no functional purpose? Why do humans form family units rather than communal raising of offspring? Why do humans value individual achievement over group harmony? The underlying assumption was always the same, that the Lumari way was logical and the human way was not. Yet they asked with genuine curiosity rather than judgment. Zoe answered as honestly as she could, explaining that human emotions drove many of their choices, but that these emotions had evolutionary purposes. Attachment to family members ensured children were protected. Art allowed humans to process complex emotions and share experiences. Individuality led to diverse approaches and innovations. The Lumari listened, their skin shifting with thoughtful patterns. During this time, Zoe was invited to observe Lumari education centers. She watched as young Lumari were taught to channel their natural emotions into logical patterns, a process they called emotional mathematics. The young one's skin shifted with bright, uncontrolled colors, much like human children showed unfiltered emotions. As they matured, they learned to display only the controlled patterns of adult Lumari. After one such observation, a Lumari educator approached Zoe. Her name was Vela, and she specialized in teaching the youngest Lumari. "How do human children learn to process emotions?" she asked. "They don't always," Zoe admitted with a smile. "We teach children to name their feelings and express them appropriately, but we don't try to control emotions the way Lumari do." Vela's skin rippled with what Zoe had come to recognize as surprise. "Yet your adults function in society," she said. They cooperate and create remarkable things. Despite this emotional chaos, Zoe nodded. Sometimes because of it, she suggested, our emotions connect us to each other. They help us understand needs beyond our own. They drive us to create and explore. The educator considered this. I have noticed that the young ones who struggle most with emotional mathematics often show the greatest creative potential. She said this has been considered a flaw in our system, but perhaps there is value in this divergence. With Vela's help, Zoe began working with Lumari educators to develop new approaches that incorporated elements of human emotional expression alongside traditional Lumari training. The results were promising. Young Lumari, who were allowed to express a wider range of emotions, showed increased problem-solving abilities and greater empathy for other species. Regular communications from Earth kept Zoe informed of Zillia's mission. The Lumari team had successfully deployed their technology, diverting the meteor to a safer trajectory that would miss Earth entirely. The human governments had welcomed the Lumari with gratitude and interest. Zillia reported that she was learning much about humans by observing them in their natural environment. I understand now why you find Earth so beautiful, Zillia wrote in one message. The chaos of your natural systems contains patterns I never appreciated before. Your oceans, which once seemed frightening to me, now appear as complex mathematical systems of immense beauty. I have even learned to wade in shallow water. 2 months after her departure, Zillia returned to the Lumari homeworld. Zoe was waiting at the landing pad when the ship arrived. She could not help smiling when she saw her friend descend from the vessel. Zillia moved differently now with a fluidity that reminded Zoe of human gestures. Her skin glowed with patterns more complex than before, blending the traditional Lumari blue with streaks of pink and gold. They embraced without hesitation a gesture that drew surprised looks from the Lumari officials present. Tell me everything, Zoe said as they walked toward the transport that would take them back to the city. Zillia described her time on Earth with an enthusiasm that would have been uncharacteristic before I visited your childhood town. She said, your family welcomed me. They showed me the lake where you learned to swim. Your grandmother taught me to bake cookies, though my attempts were not successful. Zoe laughed, trying to imagine Zillia with her long fingers covered in cookie dough. My family can be overwhelming. They were wonderful. Zillia said, her skin pulsing with warm light. They treated me as if I belonged, as if the differences between us were insignificant compared to our connection through you. This is not the Lumari way, but I find I prefer it. The success of the meteor diversion had elevated Zillia's status among her people. The High Council requested a full report and evidence of her experiences on Earth. She provided not only the technical details of their mission, but also observations about human culture and society. Her perspective was unique, a Lumari who had lived among humans and begun to understand their emotional nature from within. The council was particularly interested in Zillia changing skin patterns. The pink and gold colors she now displayed regularly were being studied by Lumari scientists. Some younger Lumari had begun to show similar colors when engaging with human visitors. This phenomenon was dubbed the human effect, a term that made Zoe laugh when she heard it. I am not changing your people. Zoe protested when Zillia told her about the research. Zillia disagreed. But perhaps we needed to change. Your human unpredictability, your emotional nature, these qualities complement our logical approach. We are learning from each other, becoming more than we were. A year after Zoe arrived on the Lumari homeworld, the High Council announced a historic decision. They would establish a permanent exchange program bringing humans to live and work among Lumari, while sending Lumari representatives to Earth. The goal was to create a generation of individuals who could bridge the gap between the species, serving as cultural interpreters. Zoe and Zillia were appointed to lead the program. Their friendship had become a symbol of what could be achieved when different species worked together. The pink glow that Zillia's skin displayed when they were together had been officially recognized as a new emotional state, one that represented intercultural harmony. The first group of human volunteers arrived 3 months later. 20 people of different ages and backgrounds selected for their adaptability and Emotional intelligence. Zoe and Zelia had created an orientation program to help them adjust to Lumari society. One of the volunteers was a young woman named Lisa Chen, a marine biologist specializing in coral reefs. She had brought samples of Earth corals to study alongside Lumari aquatic plants. The Lumari scientists were fascinated by the symbiotic relationships within coral ecosystems, seeing parallels to their own society. Another volunteer, Patrick Nguyen, was a composer who worked with mathematical patterns in music. He collaborated with Lumari sound architects to create compositions that blended human emotional expressiveness with Lumari mathematical precision. The resulting works were performed in the Great Crystal Hall, drawing audiences from across the planet. The Lumari selected to travel to Earth were young by their standards, only a few decades old. They had been chosen for their unusual adaptability and interest in emotional expression. Many had already developed the pink skin patterns associated with human connection. They were eager to learn more about Earth culture, particularly human art, music, and social bonding. As the exchange program grew, so did the relationship between humans and Lumari. Trade agreements were established, cultural artifacts were shared, and scientific collaboration flourished. Other alien species took notice. The Krell, impressed by human courage, invited Earth to join their military alliance, while the Vorax sought human artists and musicians for cultural exchanges. Through it all, Zoe and Zelia remained at the center of this growing interspecies community. Their friendship had evolved into something neither species had words for, a connection that transcended both human emotion and Lumari logic. They had created a new way of being that incorporated the strengths of both their peoples. 3 years after Zoe first arrived on the Lumari homeworld, the High Council proposed building a permanent monument to commemorate the human Lumari alliance. They requested that Zoe and Zelia design it together. We spent weeks considering what would best represent our connection. Zoe told Lisa as they walked through the crystal gardens. The Lumari wanted something mathematical and precise. I wanted something that captured the emotional aspect of our friendship. What did you decide? Lisa asked. Zoe smiled. A living monument, she said. Something that will grow and change as our relationship with the Lumari evolves. She led Lisa to a secluded area of the gardens where a new structure was taking shape. It resembled a earth tree, but with crystalline branches that caught the light in rainbow patterns. The trunk was formed from a material that responded to both Lumari and human touch, changing color and pattern when contacted. Around the base of the tree, small pools of water reflected the shifting colors above. This is incredible, Lisa breathed, reaching out to touch one of the branches. The crystal warmed under her fingers, changing from clear to a soft pink. Zelia designed the mathematical structure. Zoe explained. I suggested the water elements and the responsiveness to touch. The Lumari scientists created a new material that reacts differently to each species. It learns from each interaction, becoming more complex over time, just like your friendship. Lisa observed. Yes. Zoe agreed. Just like our friendship. It grows with each experience, each new understanding. That evening, Zoe and Zelia sat in the garden beneath their monument. The light from the crystal branches cast shifting patterns across their faces. They had spent the day introducing the new human volunteers to Lumari customs and were taking a rare moment of quiet together. Do you ever miss Earth? Zelia asked her, skin glowing with the now familiar pink that appeared whenever they spoke of personal matters. Sometimes, Zoe admitted, the open skies, the unpredictability of weather, the chaotic beauty of nature. But then I remember that I found something here I never expected. The Lumari tilted her head. What did you find? A connection that transcends worlds, Zoe said, reaching for her friend's hand. A friendship that has changed not just us, but our species. Something that will outlive both of us. Zelia, skin rippled with complex patterns of emotion. A phenomenon that would have been impossible before meeting Zoe. The human effect has transformed me, she acknowledged. But I believe it has made me more complete, not less Lumari. Their conversation was interrupted by an urgent message from the High Council. They were requested to return to the city immediately. When they arrived, they found the council chamber filled with representatives from multiple alien species. The atmosphere was tense. First Minister Ilara greeted them with formal patterns. "We have received a communication from a previously unknown species," she explained. "They call themselves the Novan. They have observed our alliance with humans and wish to establish contact." The message was displayed on a large screen. It showed beings of swirling energy with no fixed form. They spoke in measured tones, explaining that they had watched the development of several species, including humans and Lumari. The Novan had long believed that emotional species, like humans, were too volatile for advanced technology, while logical species like Lumari lacked the creativity for true innovation. However, they continued. The alliance between humans and Lumari has demonstrated that balance is possible, that emotion and logic can complement each other, creating something stronger than either alone. "We wish to join this growing community of worlds." The council chamber erupted in discussion. Representatives from Earth, the Krell homeworld, and Vorax Prime debated how to respond to this new contact. The Novan were clearly advanced far beyond any known species. Their technology seemed to bend the laws of physics as currently understood. Zoe listened to the debate, then stepped forward with Zilia at her side. "We should welcome them," she said. "Our differences have made us stronger, not weaker. Each species brings unique perspectives that benefit all." Zilia nodded, her skin displaying complex patterns of agreement. "The universe is vast," she said. "Too vast for any single approach to comprehend fully. The Lumari way of logic, the human way of emotion, the Krell way of strength, the Vorax way of adaptation. All are valid, all are needed.